Well, welcome back to the Fair Game Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Robert Smith. We want to thank all 6 of our listeners for joining us this week. Today's guest is an industry expert, having provided theatrical and special event entertainment for over 4 decades. Based in Los Angeles, Harmony Artists specializes in providing top national headline and regional entertainment at a variety of venues throughout the world. And from Harmony Artists, this is the man himself, Jerry Ross. Jerry, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Robert. Pleasure to be here.
So we were talking a little bit before we came in on the intro. You guys have been getting pounded with rain out there, but nothing is flooding in your house yet, correct?
Not yet.
Not yet. We're going to cross our fingers.
We'll qualify it.
We're
If
qualifying.
the pool overflows, I'm not sure what could happen.
Right. Just for point of reference for our listeners, today is February 5th, and they've got this insane level of rain that's coming into California. I remember, wasn't it like 10 minutes ago that California was all drought, and now it's all rain and flooding?
I'm not going to comment on the state of the climate.
Let's not go there.
Too political.
Let's not go there. Anyhow, so man, 45 years, if I read on your website that you guys have been at it, that's a long time. Tell me how you got started at Harmony Artists.
Well, actually, truth be told, it's now 49.
Oh, time to update the website.
Yeah, I know. Well, we figured we'd just wait till 50, right? My snappy answer is stupidity mostly. Is how we got started. But
Understood.
I was a bass player when I was a kid, and I was mediocre at best. I just love the industry. And we tried a variety of ways. I tried a variety of ways to get into it, and finally met somebody who became my partner, who introduced me to 3 nightclubs in Southern California and 2 bands. And we started booking bands and nightclubs. Worked with Scott Foster for about a year, and during that time is when I met Mike Dixon. Mike was my longtime partner. We had unfortunately lost him last year. He had retired about 10 years ago, but Mike and I started doing the nightclub thing in Southern California. And it was back in, well, I don't have to hide my age because I was 10 when we started the company. But
wow.
Yeah, okay. I was
Wow.
precocious. I was
Okay.
precocious.
Okay, Jerry. Be honest, they weren't even giving birth certificates back then.
No, they weren't. So we back in the mid 70s and late 70s, we were booking nightclub bands in Southern California, and life was unbelievable. Orange County was the fastest growing county in the nation. 3 consecutive quarters. People had 3 jobs and then another one they didn't bother to go to. The disposable income was insane. It was before Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It was before sexually transmitted diseases were much of a thing. It was wild and crazy, and we did as much business in 5 counties as guys I know did in 5 states.
Wow.
So that's where we came from.
Now, you said you were a bass player. Did you ever play in any of those shows, or this was just strictly you booking other bands?
Oh, strictly me booking other bands. I knew well enough when to leave alone. I was a junior cantor at my synagogue. So when they tried to have me sing, it was more of a cantorial. I was not a pop singer by any stretch of the imagination. I was pretty much a crappy bass player. So yeah, that didn't last long. That side of my performance thing. Now my performance is playing the telephone and talking good shit.
Yeah, I understand you're pretty good at playing that telephone, and before the show we were talking about the number of conventions and trade shows and whatnot you do, and 3 or 4 of those are fairs, and then others are performing arts and things like that. But I'm guessing this time of year you're probably starting to wear out your fingers dialing phone numbers.
Yeah, it's true. I look at the call sheet and you keep moving it over, and because we're on the phones a ton this time of year, and the emails. I'll go home and I'll sit in my office at night and I'll do emails that I'll send out the next morning, just because you got to reach out to so many people these days.
Right, and you got to move quickly.
Mhm.
So What are some of the core principles that have made Harmony Artists an industry leader for so long, 49 years now?
Um, it's pretty basic stuff. Uh, I don't lie because, well, first of all, I don't have the brain power to remember that if I'm telling people crap, I don't remember what I've told them. Um, so tell the truth. I tend to be a real bottom line guy. Um, you know, we had somebody showcase for us at the IAPI convention this last year, and I thought that his show sucked. And I walked up to him and I said, that was really, really weak, and we can't sell that. And he was there doing a couple of different things. And I said, we can do this, but we have to put this on the shelf until you get it right. And he said to me, God, Jerry, I love the fact that you just don't screw around. You just go right to the bottom line. I don't think any of us have time for that anymore.
No, and I tell you what, just hearing that as a entertainer myself, as a service provider myself for the fair industry, I can appreciate that because I see too many people that just get dragged along. And I feel like even sometimes fairs will do it in the buying process, and this, it goes and goes and goes. And I've just gotten to the point where like the best thing a fair can if it's not a yes, or if it's not I will let you know next week for sure, one way or the other. Just tell me no. And I've even gotten to the point where I've just decided the answer for them, the answer is no until they say it's yes. Cause I don't have
Right.
time to drag that out. And I think that's good of you that you have the ability to just look at an act and say, yeah, this ain't it, chief.
Well, not just that, but yeah, that's part of it. But it's, if you and I are working on your schedule and you say, Jerry, I really want to play this venue, I'll just bottom line you. Yeah, Robert, that venue is not going to happen, and here's why.
Yep.
As opposed to saying, oh yeah, I'll call them and I'll work on them and just never having it deliver. So we just tell the truth. I think, Adrian, of course, um, has been a huge part of Harmony for 27 years, I guess. We've been, let's see, this is 20, so our 24th anniversary is this month. So we were together and we worked together before we got involved. And so she's been a big part of it. And I think a big part of it is that we're just nice folk. I mean, it's kind of a lame thing to say, but um, we just get along really well with everybody. And I think those two things is tell the truth and be good people. I think
Yeah.
that's the key.
Yeah. Well, and when people know they can come to you and just get the honest answer and they're not going to get dragged through, not get BS from you. And I know there's kind of that popular feeling that agents sometimes come off as like used car salesmen. They just want to get an act sold. But you've always struck me as the guy who's honest enough that if you don't have the right act for that venue, you'll just tell them.
I tell a story about a guy in Indiana who primarily he's at a university there. He primarily does headliners,
Okay.
and probably for I don't know 10 years we would see each other at one of the conferences and, hey Steve, how you doing, still doing headliners? He said, yeah. I said, well, not me. And we'd chat about the weather, whatever it was. And I guess it was last year, I saw him on my appointment schedule. I have people that help make appointments for these conferences, and he walked up to the booth and I said, I saw you on my appointment schedule. What's going on? He said, well, I decided I wanted to buy that show. So it's, yeah, there's going to be a lot of times. I was on the phone with somebody the other day and we were talking about shows, and they took 3 of our shows for their performing arts season. And one of the shows they asked about, we talked and I said, and we decided just to let it go. It just wasn't going to be right for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't do that, then I want to make a client for life. I don't want to
Yes.
make a sale for today.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. I got to the point even on my side with the fortune machine where I learned I did it enough where I learned what the parameters were, where it works best, where it can work well, and then where it shouldn't work. And there have been a number of fairs over the years that have come up and that, oh, we really want you want conjure or whatnot, and but their fairgrounds are entirely dirt or
No, right.
it's gravel or something. Like I can't move the box across that. I can't, you don't have a spot to put it. And
Right.
rather than be like, but I could get a good check. I could fill that week in, August or whatever, and I could get paid. But then what happens when the show's a disaster? It doesn't look good. It hurts my reputation. It hurts my brand. People at the fair then complain about whatever. Just doesn't, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. So I think that that's really been a huge part of why we've been able to last as long as we have, and have the reputation that I believe we have.
yeah. Was there ever a moment in all this time, 49 years now, that you maybe looked at Adrian or you looked at yourself in the mirror and you went, maybe this is it. Maybe it's time.
Well, I think I don't know if we're dropping F-bombs on this, but
I can mark it explicit.
okay.
This is
But
the Fair
yeah,
Game Podcast. Go for it.
there have been times I've looked in the mirror and I've thought, what the am I doing here?
Yeah.
It's like, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We actually had before Adrian and I were, I think, friends at this point. Um, but I had an epiphany moment. I'm a cancer survivor, and I lost my right kidney to cancer. Jesus, 30 years ago, long time. I don't even remember anymore. I'm one of the really, really lucky ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank God every morning. Um, but I was out for an extended period of time, and we were still in the nightclub business at this point. And we had somebody working for us, and Mike was also involved in something else. And in the period of time that I was out ill, we had a guy working for us who basically went to all of our acts, and we were basically almost out of business. He just stole everything from us.
Wow.
And there was a period there. I went out and I looked for other jobs, and some company offered me, hey, you'd be a great salesperson for our office supplies. It's like, yeah, I just couldn't do it. And there was a minute where the ship was still heading towards the edge of the cliff. We'd gotten it turned, and we had the engine running again, but the momentum was still carrying it. It was really touch and go there for a while, and I thought, okay, we need to get out. These days, it's I look around, and there are no new fairs coming.
Right.
There are no new performing arts coming, centers, like, a little tiny bit here and there, and you'll see an occasional, but then you watch them go out of business too. So the apple that we all work at, that we want to take a bite of, is pretty much the same size as it's always been.
Yep.
There are just a lot more people scurrying around that apple trying to get a bite of it.
Yeah.
And so there are times I look at it and I think, we're carrying 40 artists on the roster for very specific markets.
Yep.
At what point does it just become overkill? And I'm not a child anymore, so I do get tired easier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, there are definitely times, but it's being able to do things like this. I'm on a couple of boards for different organizations, and I love serving on the committees and giving back to everything. And that's really what fires my engine right now and keeps me really people calling me and asking for help, organizations drawing down on my 50 years of knowledge. I love doing that, and I love the relationships. APAP, where I had 60 meetings over 4 days in APAP, scheduled, not
Is that
counting the
the
improv.
performing arts group?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very different. The type of conferences, what you'll get at IAFE and what you'll get at APAP, they're very, very different types of conferences. The performing arts people love to do meetings. So we'll schedule, like I said, I had probably 60 meetings scheduled, plus people stopping by the booth and whatnot. Um, I love that energy. And I have friends all across the country. How many people can say that? And look, I get to do this for a living. I get to, deal with performers and go see shows and go to fairs and do all that, and people pay me to do it. What, what the hell? What
Yeah.
else am I
Right.
going to want to do? So,
Yeah. I remember early on in my career when I was in my early mid 20s and was starting to get going, and I remember my mom kept saying to me, "So when are you going to get a real job?"
My
And then
dad used to say the same thing to me.
yeah, and then it took having to go do the Washington State Fair. Well, it was the Puyallup Fair. It was before the name change back in 2010. And it took having to just flat out show my mom the check and go, okay, the conversation's over. This is a real job. When you book, you
That's
know,
hysterical.
I'm like, yes, I just got paid X number of dollars to do magic for what 17 days or 15 days, whatever it was.
Right.
Yes, I can do this.
Yeah, I
It
had
might have taken a minute, but I got there.
right. Exactly the same thing. Only in my case, it was a P&L.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Look, Dad, look.
So in your time doing all this, you've no doubt worked with some headline artists, you've worked with all sorts of different entertainers. You've got to have a good story or two about a headline artist that's happened along the way,
You know, we
like a
we don't.
Leonard Skinner or something that you've worked with that you're like, well, let me tell you.
um, it's actually Adrian's story, not mine.
Okay.
And we were
Do we need her permission for you to tell it?
no, she's my wife. What's hers is mine. What's mine? Wait,
Okay.
well, wait. That
Okay.
is it
That is,
pre-published? Is it
do I need to
I
edit that
gotta,
out?
yeah, right. Um, and gosh, I'm not even remember who the artist was, but we had been warned that um, he might have had a bit of a drinking issue, I guess would be the good way to put it.
Okay. So it can be
Um,
one of about 200 artists right there
oh, or so.
or more.
It'll probably come to me while I'm telling the story, but we were doing a concert series down at one of the cities down Laguna Beach or somewhere down in South Orange County. And we had Pam from, uh, yeah, you know, you sent me this. I should have done my homework more on this. Pam Forney was our sound person,
Okay.
and we had Pam at one end. So the artist comes in, gets poured out of the car, makes his way on the stage, and there was a whole big thing about how long a show he had to do. And it was going to be a 75-minute show. So about 30 minutes in, Adrian's at one side of the stage, and Pam is at the other side of the stage. And he comes up with, "Thanks, Laguna Hills, and good night." And he starts to walk off, and Adrian and Pam are both at each end of the stage, pointing him back towards the stage. 3 times he decided that he was done in his 75-minute show.
He wasn't done. He was just building the audience
Right,
energy.
exactly
It was
right.
all planned, right?
Exactly right. Um, I think some of my favorite thing, we did some corporate stuff. There was a company that we did their corporate events for called Wonderwear. And we did some things for them. We did a show at the in the Superdome in Louisiana, where they actually draped off the dome, and we did it. So you had a big 2/3 area and then a third area where the party was. And inside the party area, there was the Taste of New Orleans and the stage and tables, and that's where all the party happened. Um, and we did Dr. John, and we did the Neville Brothers.
Okay.
And then there was a local band out of Orange County. The company was based in Orange County, California, and they had a band that they wanted to come out. And um, I got to drive around the Superdome in a golf cart and organize this whole thing. So we literally bust the people from the convention into the Superdome
Yeah.
and dropped them out. The Blaine Kern, which is a company that does all of the floats for the parades and whatnot in New Orleans, they provided a bunch of floats and people were throwing stuff at them. And people walked in through that and then into the party area. We did indoor fireworks. And at one point I got to drive the golf cart up to the very top of the Superdome and look
I've
out
been in
over
that
this.
building. I have been in that building, and I know exactly what you're talking about, going all the
Right.
way up.
And driving Dr. John around was kind of cool. Having those kind of
See, you're getting into my mother-in-law's kind of music there. She's they're down in Biloxi and they've been Saints fans forever. So you mentioned Dr. John.
Oh yeah.
She
Oh, the
she could probably
Nevilles.
recite word for word his lyrics.
Yeah, or the Nevilles
Yeah,
even more.
yeah,
So
for sure.
those kinds of things were, a lot of fun. There's stupid shit that happens, but you don't want to tell too many stories. But
Right. Well, you ever look back and think, I should have been writing these down? The book would be a number one bestseller.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, people have told us that our office should be a reality show.
Hey man, it
Uh,
can be like just go Facebook Live. We will all watch and see what shenanigans are going on at Harmony Artists.
I mean, since obviously it's much different since the pandemic, but
Yeah.
at one point when we had 7 people in the office, and Adrian and I are pretty nutso anyway, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah, people have said we should write a book, but
But you
you
didn't.
know, I
You
didn't. I didn't.
sometimes, I don't know, man. Sometimes just the lived experience is worth more than any book. Like I think about, you see these pictures of concerts, and I know you see it because you're in that kind of production where everybody in the audience is experiencing the concert through their phone. They're all holding their phone up. There, and I'm like, there's one picture of I don't know what concert it was, but it's looking out at the audience and everybody's got their phone up and this one lady has no phone and she's leaning on the bike rail or whatever looking up and she's singing the songs and I'm like there's one person in that
Having
audience.
a good time,
One. There's not 20,000, there's one.
right?
And I just I look at how people experience everything. We've gotten so used to just documenting everything on our phones. And I'm like, no, it's okay to just watch that show and enjoy it. Like, take one picture for the memory and then put your phone away and enjoy the show.
Well, here's the problem. And it goes back to MTV days. So let's when we were doing nightclub bands in Southern California and MTV happened, all of a sudden the reality and the rawness of a live performance wasn't good enough for people. They wanted to sit there and they wanted to see that box. They wanted to see somebody do MTV. They
Yeah.
wanted a replication of that because they had spent so much time watching that's what they
Interesting.
wanted to see. Now people experience so much through a screen
Yep.
that they don't appreciate the reality. I love live performance, whether it be theater or
Yep.
music, because it's one time only. And that
Right.
experience that you whether it be in a theater or at a fairgrounds or you could be watching a grounds act doing whatever it is. That's the only time that performance will ever be that way,
Yep.
and that the audience will react that way. It's a once in a lifetime experience. You're never going to have it again. It's never going to be duplicated.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of live performance. There's tons of stories to tell. I've got of those. Um, we were in New York and we went to a show. Had all our kids with us. We went to the theater, and we saw Peter and the Starcatcher. And it was the last night of the show. The show was closing, and it was so. Captain Hook slams his hand down on his wrist, and that's in that particular story how he gets the hook. Um, and I can't remember the performer's name, the actor's name, but he does a spit take on this, and the audience starts laughing. More importantly, is he cracked up the cast. So you see Wendy and Peter, their backs at the moment to the audience because they're looking, and their shoulders are doing
But
this.
you can tell.
Everybody on stage is flipping hysterical,
Right.
and the audience is, and it was like a 10-minute take that he did this. It was so it was it was the only time ever that ever happened. He used
Yep.
to book he used to book a performer by the name of Jonathan Cain. This is in the 70s.
A long time ago.
Long ass time
That was
ago.
only like
Jonathan,
20 years ago, because as far as I'm
pretty
concerned, it's still
much.
1995.
And there you go. Jonathan was at the time was signed to Bearsville Records. He went on to become a bit of a star, but he was signed to Bearsville Records to his own label, or I mean his own band, and he was playing the Calabasas Mine Shaft in Calabasas, which is long gone. There's car dealerships there now. But it was one of those nights. There was probably like 600 people in the room, shoulder to shoulder. You couldn't move. You could pass out, you wouldn't fall over because there were so many people holding you up. And it was just one of those nights where he just was totally on. And the live experience was, and it was the only time that was going to happen. And you can repeat those all through my entire career, getting to go see shows and having that rawness of the live experience. And going back to what you're talking about, these people now are so used to, they want to see, they're so used to it being on this little screen or this screen or whatever,
Yep.
that they have to replicate it that way so they can figure out how to enjoy it. Just, like you say, yeah, take 10 pictures, whatever. But
Right.
don't video the whole flipping show and then try and go back and relive it. You're missing the whole thing.
Yeah, I forget which act it was that we saw, or maybe a friend had told us a story. I can't. I'm blanking the name of what the band was, but they were like, "Yo, we're coming out. Here's the deal. You get this first song, take all the pictures and video you want, and then put your fucking phones away." And they got done, and they were like, "All right, we're not playing again until you put your phones away."
Right?
and
No, it's
and
true.
and I guess I forget which band it was, but everybody was like, okay. I mean, I'm sure there were still some people that were like, no, I'm gonna sneak
Of
a picture.
course.
But
Right.
like, if that's your favorite artist and you're like, man, I've been waiting to see this show forever, like, cool, get your yayas out and then enjoy the moment. We are so like, are we living for our own moments, or are we living to show our moments off to everybody else? And I tell you what, over the last few years, as big as I used to be on social media about harping on, make sure you're putting content out, this, that, and the other. Like if you go look at my Facebook profile now, it's entirely business stuff. I don't put my personal stuff out there because I'm enjoying those moments for myself.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, it's become a whole different way of people are living to show off instead of
yeah,
living to enjoy.
it's very much in a weird ego stroke. And I don't know. I think you're an older generation. I'm a Gen X that kind of straddled the analog to digital conversion. And so I came up without any of this stuff. So I'm perfectly content being by myself. But
Right.
I tell you, I see youngsters today that are not content being alone. It's very
No,
weird,
well, they
and they
can't
have
be.
to be connected. It reminds me. Did you ever watch Star Trek: The Next Generation? Were you ever a Star Trek fan?
Oh, yeah.
So you know what I'm going to say. They remind me of the Borg Collective. They have to be plugged in. Like they have, like the one time that the one I forget which it was. It was the one where they saved the Borg, and they're talking to him and they're kind of breaking him from the collective, and he's like, when I was with the collective, I could hear everyone's thoughts, and now I'm not with the collective, and it's so quiet, and it's
Right.
startling, and it's uncomfortable for him. And I'm like, man, that's what is happening to our kids. So I'm like, I'm excited when I get to turn my phone and my laptop off and I'm done with work. And it's
Sure.
like, no, now I may go pop the TV on and kick back, but I'm like, I'm just enjoying my little circle within my home. And
Right.
I don't need to put stuff out to be like, will you click like?
Yeah.
Will you affirm my insecurities?
Well, but that's exactly right. Is affirming my insecurities.
Yeah.
Um, you know, people people need affirmation and have lost the ability to find it on their own.
Yeah. It has to like, well, and the only way they get it is from likes and comments and shares. And I think
Right.
I don't know. I think that's sad. Nate, our son, has got an Instagram that I think he's made like 10 posts on. He just doesn't, he'll play video
Right.
games with his homies, but the whole social media thing, he's not really chasing it. He doesn't
Yeah.
care.
And I hate to say it, but I'm a boomer.
What's that?
I'm a boomer.
You're a
That's how far
boomer.
back. That's how far back I
You're a
go.
boomer. But you're a boomer of an agent. I don't know. That was a weird transition. Back
Yes,
to the
yes, I have a boomer Venetian.
back to the agent side. Uh, it must be for you. It must be a little bit like fairs when you get emails from potential acts. You get a lot of them throughout the year that are like, "Hey, we're a band or we're a magician, magic act. We need somebody to represent us." Um, I'm assuming you get a handful of those. Yeah.
Yeah, we
What
get
do,
not as many as I would expect anymore, but yeah, we definitely get them.
what do you when you're considering a new act? what are you looking for in an act when you add them to your roster?
Um, well, there's a variety of things that we have to go through. First of all, we tend to set our roster in June, July, because we print our brochure in early August for the first of the conferences. And then we use the same brochure all the way through May
Yeah.
for the Florida fairs, and then we burn them. Might save one or two for posterity, but
Yeah.
so I've really tried not to carry two of anything on the roster. So I don't want to carry two Eagles tributes, for
Right.
example. You know, how do you determine who gets the job?
Sure.
How do you decide which one to pitch? So I'm not going to carry two hypnotists or two magicians or that kind of stuff. So the first question is, are they already on? First question is, what time of year is it? Because if it's in January, I've made commitments to the people that are on my roster,
Yeah.
and that those commitments carry through the booking cycle, if you will.
Sure.
So if I put you in the roster in July for that year, you're in that roster through the Florida Fair Convention in May.
Got it.
And I'm not gonna really, unless something is so startlingly different, I'm
Right.
not gonna add anybody. You know, so if it's really different and really unique, okay, cool, that's something else. But if not, it's not fair to the artists I've made commitments to add anybody else. And then it becomes a quality thing, you know. It's really hard to bring on brand new artists because they're brand new and they're just starting out.
Yeah.
And many of them don't have the chops down yet, which, you know, is sort of unfair because it's much more difficult these days to book yourself individually, unless you're working really tiny places, you know, small county fairs, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It makes it really hard. I mean, there's ways to do it, but so we look for, you know, high quality, professionalism. I decided years ago when so my assistant buzzed and said Joe Blow is on the phone, and I thought, oh man, I don't want to talk to that guy. That I didn't need to represent him anymore, or people that I didn't like. So if you're not going to be family, then, or if I don't think you can be family, then, you know,
And
it
it's not a
just,
fit.
it's not a fit.
Yeah.
And there are great people out there who just don't fit, who, you know, I have nothing but nice things to say about, but they're just not my people, if you
Sure.
will. So I mean, those are do you understand the fact that you got to put the cart before the horse? You may be a great act, but if you don't have the marketing materials and the wherewithal to put it out there and for them to market, for the buyers to market it to their people, then you're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't understand that, you know, so there's all those kinds of aspects that go into it. Mainly, are we going to want you in the Harmony family? Are you the type of person that we want to work with? Um, are you ready? You know, I am happy to help any fair that needs help. Um, I do have fairs I can't work with because we just don't have artists that can work within the framework of the budgets that they have. Um, because we're looking for a certain level of artist. You know, happy to give you some advice on how to go out and get your chops done. I think that one of the worst things that's happened to the music business is the disappearance of the dance nightclub. That was such a great farm system for new artists to go out and practice their craft and
Yeah.
hone their craft. It's hard for a fair performer to find those things. Maybe it's birthday parties or small fairs.
Sure.
You know, you work locally and then you develop. But there's so few.
It's like comedians who used to have open mic nights at, 5 or 6 clubs around
Right.
their region.
So one of the things that I think the industry, all the entertainment industry miss, are those places where new people can go and you know, practice their chops.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, are you ready to make that step in? You know, so I think those are the initial things we look for, and
Sure.
then marketing, and you know, are you really ready to make that step?
Yeah. You work in a lot of different markets, from performing arts to the fairs. I want to ask you specifically about the fair industry. What do you think the fair industry looks like in 10 years?
I read that on your notes, and I've been thinking about that. Um, I don't know that it looks a whole lot different. When you look at the fair industry and what it's been for the last 100 years, I mean, you've got a number of fairs that are doing their 100th, 150th fair. The content and what's inside the fair may change. I mean, look, there's AI, which is, in the process of exploding all over the world. There are different things. I remember I do a lot with the LA County. We used to, and especially do a lot with the LA County Fair.
Yep.
And they're all about trying to keep animal husbandry, and that's part of culture alive in what is certainly a rural environment.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of what the fairs do, is to keep that aspect of American life alive and vibrant, at least for people to understand where food comes from, all
Yeah.
of all of those aspects, which a lot of people are losing. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon, but you know, first it was nothing but old rock and roll bands playing the shows. Now it's hip hop artists playing the shows. So some of that kind of content may change, but it's always been a place, and I think it will continue to be a place for people to come and show off their photography or how they can set a table, or their artwork, or their sculpture, or their animal, their plants or their animals. But I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I think they look, um, the way they're structured structurally, they're similar to what they are now. I just think that content wise it could change a lot. And boy, if I knew that, I'd probably be sitting in a much bigger house than I live in
Yeah,
now.
right. See, my guess, the one thing that I've been watching that kind of concerns me for the future is that you have to have replacement of your guests over time. Like you think about Disney over the years, it was something I remember when we went with grandpa. I remember when we went with my parents. Now I went with just my wife. Then we take my family. So it becomes a generational thing with fairs. And yet you look,
I've been to Disney. I have three grandchildren that live in Southern California, live in LA. I've been to Disney 4 times in the last 2 years, and I understand them going again in March.
yes, yeah. So it becomes generational. And yet we're looking at a generation coming up that's putting off marriage and putting off having kids. And so how does the fair industry cater suddenly to an adult demographic that there becomes a much larger, we're talking in the next 5 to 10 years, becomes a much larger portion of that demographic coming to fairs that don't have kids? And how
But
do
I
you
don't
cater
think
to them?
I think, well, I think it's what you put in the fair.
Yeah, like you say, the content. The
The,
fair
the,
looks
the
similar,
con
but the content may change.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe they come, and I have a daughter who lives in New York who is in her mid-30s, who I don't believe is likely to ever get married. But she has a cadre of friends, and they travel all over, and they go do things, um and she's in the theater business, but so she's not really in the fair business at all. But I think that you're going to find groups of friends that go out and do stuff together.
Yeah.
um I can't remember. There's some kind of big number of um, the younger generation that are identifying as not traditional sexual
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
I don't know how to phrase it anyway.
Sure.
Um, but so I think you just have to figure out what your demo is and plan your content to satisfy that demo.
That's true.
Everybody's going to want to go see a cow get milked.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. And I don't care if you got a kid or not. It's just interesting, and it's
Sure.
something different. So
There's
I
something
think
that some things that'll will be the same across all markets, but then LA County or OC Fair, their other content's going to look much different than the West Texas Fair in Abilene.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I just think you need to figure out your demo, and you'll get groups in. Yeah, I mean, we've been a family business for years.
Right.
Uh, And I think we still want to appeal to families, but I think part part of the fair industry's biggest issue, and this will probably get me in a world of crap, um, is
This will be the
the
video that I put out. This will be the cut. Here we go. Let's hear it, Jerry.
has been the listen, having a board of old white guys is great. Because right now it still hasn't changed over much in terms of the financial wherewithal. That's changing, and we're seeing a much broader spectrum of people who are comfortable financially.
Yep.
But it's always been the banker and the car sale, the guy who owns a car dealership, and so when you've got a board, and I don't care, they don't have to be old white guys, but when you've got a board who has the yeah, but we've always done it that way syndrome, you're gonna stagnate.
Yep.
And I think the most crucial thing this industry needs to do, and is doing, I see it, not as quickly as it needs to be, but it is sort of happening, is to be more representative of the community on the board, so the fair becomes more representative of the community.
Huge.
Um,
Yep.
I love somebody coming up to the booth and says, "Wow, man, we need something new." And I say, "Oh, well, here, look at this. This is really cool, and it's new and it's different." And the first thing I get is, "Oh, well, yeah, we've never done anything like that before. We couldn't do that." It's like,
Yeah, we can't.
I'm
That's
sorry. Did I miss a transition?
what do you
Uh,
have in the realm of country music, Jerry? That's what we really need at our fair.
right. We
It's
really
something
need
different.
we really need an old white country guy singing love songs.
Yeah, from the 1980s. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
So
Well, let's shift up here real quick. I'd like to talk a little bit more about you personally. If you weren't an agent, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'd be selling something. I don't
Because
know.
you're
I
a
mean,
salesman at heart.
I'm a sales guy. I'm a people guy. Um, I probably should have become a real estate guy. I might have made a lot more money,
You might
because
have a bigger house.
Lord knows we're not in this for the money.
No.
But yeah, so I think I probably would have been a salesman of some sort.
Yeah. Can you tell me about someone who influenced you the most in your life?
Wow. Did you put that one on the list?
Yeah, it's
I
on
don't
the
remember.
list.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing
It's
that one.
right there on the list, Jerry.
Um, I think uh, my dad probably. Um, yeah, he was. I mean, he was never one. He had a bakery, a large wholesale bakery, and restaurants, and he had a furniture company and whatnot. But it was his work ethic, and I think his ability to keep his eyes on the prize all the time. Um, you know, plan your work and work your plan.
It sounds like his entrepreneurial spirit rubbed off on you
A little bit.
just a little.
Just a little bit.
So, what's a book you would recommend for our listeners?
Oh, I'm not much of a reader these days. I got stuck on the what's your favorite movie? Um,
That's coming up. We'll get there.
yeah, I know, I know. And so I've always been, I read a ton, but it's throwaway stuff that I read on planes. Um, so I mean, I love science fiction and fantasy. That's where I go. Um, and I think probably Foundation by Isaac Asimov is one of the best books I've ever read. It's actually well, it was initially a trilogy, and then I don't know if Isaac did or some other people did a whole bunch more Foundation books. So I like that. I've always been a big fan of the Hobbit, and the Tolkien trilogy as well. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where my brain goes. I read for escape.
Yep.
I watch the news and I listen to the news. I'm not big on um, reality or I'm not a bio kind of guy. That's not who I am.
Got it. Cool. Well, we're kind of wrapping it up here. Everybody that comes on the show, if you've listened to any of the shows before, and you may or may not be one of the 6 listeners, I'm not sure, but everybody who comes on the show goes through a little speed round. So I got 4 questions for you. You give me your best answer. I'm going to shoot them at you real quick. You ready?
Okay, sure.
Favorite vacation spot?
Cabo San Lucas.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Math.
Best fair food?
Oh, corn on the cob slathered in butter and hot sauce.
All right. And to the question you were waiting on, favorite movie?
That's not a fair question because at the age I'm at, listen,
Of all the questions I sent you, that's the one you're going to object to.
because there are so many different favorite movies over the years. If you had asked me this question when I was a teenager, it was Bye Bye Birdie and, Anne Margaret.
Okay.
So, so as you move through life, there's all these different ones.
You don't have one that's like your all-time return to it core favorite?
No, I've got a bunch.
Okay, what's your current in like the last 5 years? What's your favorite?
Well, I actually just finished watching Foundation on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
And I mentioned that to Adrian. She said, "That's not a movie." I said, "Yeah, I don't care."
We're counting it. I mean, you've got Finding Nemo on a poster behind you over your shoulder right now.
Right. And I have grandchildren and Disney children. All of my children had Disney season passes when they were growing up in Southern California. So
yeah,
Disney's always been a big part of our lives. I think my son and his family just came back. They're in Chicago and they just went to Orlando. They were at Disney in Orlando for a week this last week, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, Disney's been a big part of our life, but Finding Nemo was really more about Bruce and Bruce the shark.
Name is Bruce.
And well, he does it with an Australian accent that I won't even try. But I like to say clients are friends, not food.
Clients are friends, not food. Got it.
Well, all the shark jokes, right?
Yeah.
Take lawyers or agents; they're interchangeable in all the shark jokes. So
yep.
So my staff got me that.
So Disney's been a big thing for you. Well, I'll show you this. You see, I have this huge collection of baseballs behind me.
I did see that.
If you look, I'm doing this backwards. If you look at right there, that is I don't know if I can get it any closer. That's a Disney. Those 2 in the center are Disney annuals. So the one to the I guess it's your right is the 2005. So
wow.
That's the year Sarah and I got married, and the one with the red and blue on it is the 2000 millennial celebration where we met. We worked on the college program in Disney World together. I was in custodial and parking at what was Disney MGM Studios, is now Disney Hollywood Studios.
Right.
And she worked in entertainment. She was 4'11", so she had a couple of really cool jobs that she got to do.
I bet she did. So you were a Valley boy?
I was a what?
You talk MGM here in LA?
No. In Disney World, because back in 2000, I think the college program was only in Orlando.
No, I have no idea. So
that's their internship where they go around to colleges all across the country and sweet talk you into working in the most magical place on earth, and then they pay.
Well, you say Disney Studios, I think.
Yeah, of course. They so Disney MGM Studios that was in down in Florida. Got to run the parking trams and tell people where to park. And boy, I tell you what, that's the number. I carry that experience over to a number of the times when I go to fairs, and I'm like, I literally can look in a fairgrounds and go, that's the problem with their parking. Because I know, like I see it, there's a reason Imagineers design the parking lots in all these, they're in Disneyland. There's a reason the things are designed the way they are. And
of course.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think some fairgrounds, instead of just building conventional parking lots, should call Disney and be like, how can we get our guests in and out faster? Right. It would be worth the investment.
Oh, listen, if you talk about the fair business, you look to Disney for a lot of guest experience.
For sure.
Not just parking, but on the ground. You talk about strollers and that kind of stuff. Disney has shown many the way, those that are willing to look.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're about here ready to wrap up here. Jerry, my friend, where can folks find you and where can they learn more about Harmony Artists?
Well, Harmony Artist is easy. It's harmonyartist.com. And that's where all of our contact info is, and all of our shows are listed there. So that's a good place to find it. And um, I mean, 323-655-5007.
All the office, book a show. Excellent. Well, man, I really, we met. I don't know if you remember when we met. It was actually my very first convention. It was Arizona Fairs, November of
Okay.
2009. You had a showcase. Can't remember
Probably
who
the
it was. Duwas. That's absolutely who it would have been. And I remember introducing myself to you, and we talked for like 2 minutes, and then I decided in that 2 minutes, I'm like, I'm not even going to pitch having him trying to book me because I don't even know what the hell I'm doing right now. I was so new. I was like, I don't want to seem like an idiot. So
well, hopefully I was a nice guy.
you were. I was intimidated by everybody around me at that point because I literally, I was a magician at that point. Like so many of us come into the industry and then we grow up and do something else, I guess. But yeah, you've always done great work and always been very kind to me. And so I appreciate you coming on the show today and appreciate what you've given to the industry. So folks, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed the show here with Jerry Ross, and we'll look forward to seeing you on next week's episode. Bye-bye.